Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
You got the moves over there.
I do, yeah.
I like it. I like it. Welcome back, risers and thrivers, on this very gray and gloomy Tuesday here in Vancouver. We are thrilled to have you back with us. We really hope you enjoyed the last show with the very inspirational Audrey White, who was here to really open up the conversation about grief and loss and how we can best navigate these really difficult days that we can all face. So if you missed that one, tune into the show. You can access it by downloading it from any of your favorite streaming platforms or from YouTube at Dr. Erica Harris or on the website at risetoday.com. That was another great episode. But today, boy, are we ever lucky. We've got a really inspirational show lined up for you today with Dr. George Makrides. He is a naturopathic physician, but not only that, he has a strong background in education, and he's so full of wisdom and insights, and he is also well-versed in psychology and kinesiology. He brings all of this together in this functional approach to healthcare with his patients, where it's a very personalized approach, where he can really help to best serve and elevate your physical and your mental health. So he's here today with a lot of inspiration for us and a lot of tools, a lot of little bits of actionable change that we can all implement today to live a healthier lifestyle. So George, welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am truly honored, truly.
Well, I'm going to tell my audience how you've reached out to me. It was several weeks ago on LinkedIn, and George is also a big fan of Dr. Gabor Mate and his work, and George saw the event that I'm hosting in January, that it was posted with Dr. Gabor Mate, and he had reached out to me as a result. And I was so inspired by my conversation with him and by he has this quest for knowledge and this curiosity to keep learning. And I really wanted to bring him to you, my risers and thrivers today. So George, welcome again. Thank you.
Thank you thank you so much. I think, the way we connected was rather interesting and unique, but I'm happy we did, because it brought us here today.
Myself as well. Okay. So in our conversation a few weeks ago, you have pursued this path of becoming a naturopathic physician, and you shared openly that your dad, who's also in the healthcare profession, but as a conventional medical physician, had really encouraged you to go down that similar path as to what he did. Now, how did this come about for you? How did you branch away from conventional medicine, and how do you find yourself here today with us, George?
So ever since I can remember, as a teenager going through high school, my dad always persuaded me or wanted me to pursue medicine. And at that point in time, I only thought medicine was conventional medicine. As a young kid, you go to a doctor's office, they're in a nice white coat, and they give you something and you're just better. And something about this was so fascinating to me. And as I was going through my education, I did a degree in kinesiology, I did a degree in psychology, and I knew I wanted to pursue a degree in medicine, but I didn't know what type of medicine. I know there was, physio, chiro, conventional medicine, and I wasn't sure which one. And so through various forms of shadowing and volunteering, as I went through my education, I came across an amazing chiropractor who I will never forget in Thunder Bay. And he practiced so holistically, and I've never seen this before. He would not only do adjustments, but he would have conversations about nutrition, exercise, sleep, mindfulness. And I was thinking, this is so different from what I was used to. And before I even saw him, I didn't even, see a chiropractor prior. And through conversations, he introduced me to something called naturopathic medicine, which at the time I was so ignorant, I didn't even know it existed. So he gave me some books to read about that and some teachings. And I'm like, wow, this aligns perfectly with my ideologies, how I approach my own healing, how I view medicine. And so I thought, this is it. But then I thought, this is going to be an interesting conversation with my father. And it was a very difficult one, to say the least. When I approached him, telling him that I want to pursue this form of medicine, it was difficult in that he didn't even view this as medicine.
What year was this, George?
This was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, it was before I was in the process of applying and thinking about it, probably even actually before that, 2016. And so having the conversation, was all I could see in his face was sheer disappointment. And here I was telling my father, one of the most things I was excited about in my life, and all I could see in his face was sadness, and disappointment. And I'll never forget that. I mean, I think I've healed tremendously since that point in time, but he was very disappointed in my decision. So I thought to myself, am I making the right decision? Should I be pursuing the medicine that he wants me to pursue? And after a lot of thinking and reflecting and introspection, I thought to myself, this is my path, right? I have to do what fulfills me and what truly makes me happy. I even envisioned myself, 5 years, 10 years down the road, where do I see myself? And I literally pictured myself as a conventional doctor or a Western medical doctor in comparison to a naturopathic doctor. And as I envisioned myself in those different types of journeys, I thought there's no way I need to be a naturopathic doctor. It's what resonates with me deeply. And so I decided to do that. And it took a lot of courage. And even several, the first year, second year, the conversations with my dad changed tremendously. There was a lot of hostility. There was, the conversations were minimal. And I felt almost disappointed in myself that I made the decision for me to pursue that area of medicine. But as I approached graduation and graduated, he seemed more open, and we had a lot of more open conversations in terms of medicine and what it actually is. And so to this day, and I'll be completely vulnerable and transparent, I still truly believe that he would have rather me pursued the other path of medicine. But at the end of the day, I don't think that matters to me, because I've never been happier. I've never been more fulfilled. And it did take a lot of courage to take that step. Because, as children and young adults and teenagers, our parents always bestow upon us, do this, be a lawyer, be a doctor, whatever the profession is. And so seldom do we see parents telling their children, just be whatever it is you want to be, as long as you are fulfilled and joyous. That is what truly matters. And I wish back then that's kind of what my parents told me. But, at that point in time, I think they did the best with the knowledge that they had. So that was a very hopefully condensed summary of where I found myself to be today.
Yeah, well, it does take courage, but I think in all honesty, when we really have that courage to follow our own heart and lead, through our heart in choosing these huge decisions that dictate the course of our the trajectory of our entire lives, it may be very difficult in those early days. But yet I believe wholeheartedly that it spares years of mental health trauma from having chosen the wrong profession that wasn't perfectly aligned for you, that you would have always regret in the long run. Life is short. However we serve today, we need to hold our heads high. And if this is the profession of choice for you and the ways that you do that, I could not admire you anymore for standing in your own power and upholding your belief system. I think that's so admirable. So yeah, I applaud you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So again, with your naturopathic degree and then your background in psychology and kinesiology, let's say I'm a patient that comes to your office and I want to discuss bettering my health. Where would you start with me? If you're focusing on all of these areas of sleep, exercise, mindfulness, where would you start with me?
Yeah, so I found when I started practice, I would always have a general initial intake. And for the first few appointments, that kind of fared well. But then when I started to realize that as I'm going through my intake, there's certain conversations that come up and that I need to explore and that I don't cover potentially a lot of the things that I wanted to initially, that is exercise, sleep, etc. The main goal of my initial appointment is to get as much knowledge and information from the patient as possible. And then at the end of the appointment, condense this into some sort of plan, both in the short term and long term, and talk to the patient and see what that looks like. The bulk of my initial appointment is listening. And I tell this to all my patients, you are going to be doing most of the talking. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to listen and I will ask questions I think are appropriate or if needed. But for the most part, I need you to do the most talking, because the more honest and open and transparent you can be with me, the better suited I will be to help you. And this is something that's very different from our conventional system. When you walk in to see your doctor, the conversations might be 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and more often than not, they're interrupting you within seconds, based on what you've described, right? Typically, and so my approach again is to gather as much knowledge as I can, and then we talk about everything, because my approach is holistic, it's comprehensive, it's functional. I'm talking about nutrition, sleep, exercise. What does your support system look like? I have a very, very passionate interest in mental health, and specifically men's mental health. It's an area that I'm exploring recently. And so I often find, more often than not, there are mental health related situations in every patient. And everyone has different, I guess, disturbances, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's a mental health component, I think, to every sort of path of healing. And that's an area that I will always try to touch upon with every single patient.
Okay, so let's break that down. So let's say I am a middle-aged man coming into your office,
Okay.
and with concerns for my mental well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Would you incorporate nutrition and naturopathic tools with that, or is this more talk therapy that you're then doing?
Right. So the talk therapy is always a part of it, but I'm always imploring other modalities. In my practice, nutrition I use extensively. I'm a firm believer of healing the gut and nutrition, and how that impacts the mind, because we do have this bi-directional pathway between the gut and the brain, right? And so healing the gut through nutrition as part of treatment is going to have profound spillover effects on the mind. And I see it time and time again when I am working with patients. For instance, let's say a middle-aged man who has severe anxiety. Aside from the talk therapy, supplements, acupuncture, medications that they might be on, nutrition is a very big. Nutrition plays such a big role on healing. And then after working with people for maybe after 3 or 4 months, we have conversations, and if they've made those nutritional changes, they just feel better overall. What you put in your mouth affects every physiological process in the body, and the mind is no exception to that. So nutrition is such a big part of my practice.
I cannot agree more. So let's just say, give us an example. So let's say I want to heal my gut to have my optimal peak performance, mental health. What are some strategies that I could even do at home, or that our listeners can do at home, to start really optimizing their gut health for their overall physical and mental well-being?
Mm-hmm. And I think nutrition too, we've learned so much about it, but there's so many polar ends to nutrition. We have so many different diets, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, ketogenic. And so it could be very overwhelming for someone to hop on the internet and say, where do I start? And I get that. And so that is, I think, the beauty of individualized, personalized medicine. And so for individuals who go home, I think the main, simplistic thing to do from a nutritional standpoint is learning things like, how do you read a label? A lot of people don't even know how to read a label. And so I always educate people on that. And I just say, simply look at the ingredients. The list of ingredients from beginning to the end is the weight of that ingredient. So if we look at processed foods as an example, we're going to often see sugar or a lot of candies, and that is important to know as well, right? What it is that we're eating, and then from a nutritional standpoint is minimizing processed foods, anything that's boxed, packaged, labeled. Food shouldn't have an array of ingredients. The food item that you're eating is the ingredient, right? Chicken is chicken, apples are apples. When we look at an ingredient list and we see a plethora of ingredients, what is it that we're actually eating? So a big part of nutrition, I think, is education, is just knowing what it is that we're eating. And I think, again, it varies from person to person.
Well, I very much agree. I think being educated and informed, well-informed on what we are putting in our body, starting by reading labels, is a really good start. Those labels can be a little bit inundating, as you said. And, a lot of people, again, as you said earlier, they're looking online for these nutrition tips. And it's also inundating and overwhelming because, like you said, there's so many different, here, do this keto, here, do this, do this, do this. Do plant-based. And so we don't really know, it ends up leaving a lot of question marks and confusion. And even when somebody chooses to practice a certain, perhaps, dietary regimen, they are probably still questioning themselves, is this the best? Is this the best? So at the end of the day, I think we really need to consider how the food we eat makes us feel. I always recommend to eat not to be full, but eat to be fueled, and notice that, there are silver linings of all these conditions that we can come up with. And I'm always talking here on the show about silver linings and really actively looking for them. My youngest son is a type 1 diabetic. He was diagnosed at the age of 9. And I have to say, the Children's Hospital was phenomenal. They gave us a quickie little nutrition education blip for my kids and for my ex. And, then my kids were finally like, oh, that's why you've cared so much about nutrition, and it was always better coming from somebody else other than a parent, at that age. But, it really connected the dots. And at only 9 years old, this child, who's now 13, but at only 9 years old, he could already differentiate the difference between a fat, a protein, a carbohydrate. He could read labels and identify, okay, so for one serving size, this is how many grams of carbohydrates I'm intaking at this meal. This is how protein slows the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream. This stuff does seem overwhelming and inundating when we just start from scratch online. But like Dr. George said, if you can have a trusted practitioner that you really trust to really break it down readily, it's really, really simple stuff. At the end of the day, one of my biggest principles in how I lead my life, people are always asking, what did you eat to overcome this 2-month terminal prognosis? What did you do? I'll be very honest. If there was any one secret to overcome cancer, in all honesty, I don't think we would have cancer. Cancer would be eradicated on the face of the planet, but I don't think it's that simple. I think it was this whole inner transformation I experienced. I think it was this gift from above. I think it was this fierce force of love that was extended to me from all corners of this world. That was truly this elevating force. I think I was literally, parts of me were able to will this cancer away because of my fierce yearning to still get to be mommy to my 2 incredible little humans. But I do believe in having a very proactive role in our own health and being the heroes in our own story. And you touched on this in the beginning. You picture the doctors in the white coat coming in. At the end of the day, they're definitely on the team. But at the end of the day, we're responsible for our own health. And it's only us. And as many people as we can get on board with that, I'm a huge proponent of. But at the end of the day, what I look for is that food is just real. I love to eat real food that doesn't come in a package or a can or a box or anything, just fruit, vegetables. And I do eat a lot of protein, but real. And that's kind of the standard. Don't get me wrong, risers and thrivers. I'm a girl who heard that I had 2 months to live at 35 years old. So I'm all about buying the shoes and eating the cake. Don't get me wrong. Life is short. But my general day-to-day staples are really solid, right? With these real non-processed foods. And I think if we just break it down to these simple bits, those tiny little actionable changes that we can all do on our own every day can have that's it alone, can have a profound impact on your health and wellness. For me, one of the biggest changes I did when I was facing this terminal cancer, George, and I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective on this. I was given this 2-month terminal prognosis, having not responded even to the harshest of salvage chemotherapy. I was denied all further medical care aside from palliative care at that time. This prognosis was awarded to me by not just one internationally recognized leukemia institute here in Vancouver, but by another down in Seattle in the United States of America. And really, technically, there was no hope for me. We were, like I said, enveloped with forces of love and support. People encircled us from all corners of the world, sent us experts in leukemia from Israel, from Japan, from all over. And resoundingly, all of them told me specifically, Erica Jane, you need to eat more, way more animal protein. It needs to swim, squat, run, jump, fly with every single meal. Now, leading up to that point, I was very fit, very healthy. I gravitated towards a more vegetarian diet. It was just part of my preference. And at that point, I was standing there, a high protein diet has been considered kind of the antithesis of the traditional anti-cancer diet, and I was kind of like, shoot, now what do I do? This goes against my grain and my belief system. But at the end of the day, at that time it did. At the end of the day, I was given 2 months to live. Everything I had done to that point wasn't successful. And so what did I have to lose at this point? So I did it. I incorporated a lot more eggs. I did a lot more animal protein. I also did a lot of other things like green juicing. For me, the biggest one I think that I had adopted was this whole new world of mindfulness and meditation that I had never otherwise adopted before. I had always been somewhat on autopilot, in life, going through what's coming next, go, 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 go. This hamster wheel, as a lot of us refer to it as, never did I take the time to pause and look inwards and reflect. But these changes with my diet were quite remarkable for me. I also did a ton of green juicing, added a lot more ginger, lemon, you name it, dandelion leaves. I did a whole bunch of things. So A, what are your thoughts on protein? And B, what are your thoughts on reversing things like cancer or even terminal cancer with nutrition alone?
So for the first part, protein is the single most important macronutrient that we can get in our bodies. We need to be eating a lot more. It has so many profound impacts on the body. When we look at protein as a macronutrient, and let's, I guess as a hypothetical example, if we look at, the vegetarian versus the omnivore diet, you can for sure get protein in a lot of vegetable sources. But when we're comparing the amount versus that of a carnivore or an omnivore, you have to eat a lot more vegetables to get that same amount of protein. And that's not to say that's not attainable. You just have to be a lot more aware and cognizant of it. And also, we know that protein in vegetable source, in an animal source, has the heme component attached to it, so it is more bioavailable when we actually eat it. I'm always
there, so my audience understands that word bioavailable that he just referenced, or bioavailability, means when we eat, let's say, 10 grams of egg whites or eggs. When we eat 10 grams of that egg whites, a lot of those grams are absorbable by our body. And so we absorb more protein from that, more quality protein, than we would from, let's say, 10 grams of plant protein.
Mm-hmm. And so protein is always a conversation with every part of nutrition. It keeps us full longer. It's satiating. It's everyone can use, I think, a little bit more protein for sure. I'm going
to say too, in my situation,
in
my situation in particular, all of those experts, quote unquote, that I was trusting at that time, all individually also said, Erica, look, like I had leukemia specifically, I had a blood cancer. Erica, look, you need a lot more hardcore of this animal protein because you need to have these quality building blocks to generate these new healthy blood cells. And this is going to take a lot of work. So this is what's going to fuel you best. So.
Mm-hmm. And it just actually jogs my memory. I'm reading a book. I'm almost done it. The Carnivore Code by Paul Saladino, who's a medical doctor, I think out of the States. And he talks about eating a solely meat-based diet. I think now he's just more animal-based. But it's interesting. A lot of the stuff that he puts forth are rooted a lot in science and evolution. It's an interesting perspective.
So sorry, just meat, no veggies?
Just meat. Yeah, just meat. And there's been, he has a very interesting perspective. And I think a lot of people have healed on a just meat diet from a lot of autoimmunity, skin-related disorders. I don't think that's a panacea for all conditions, right? But it's interesting.
Any advice given on the show ever is always just for you to take to a doctor or your trusted healthcare practitioner.
Absolutely.
Have that open discussion. Yes.
So protein is very, very important. On the second part of reversing cancer or treating terminally ill, I'm by no means an expert in that area. But when I can speak to that domain, I guess, as it relates to cancer, I know with cancers, we do definitely perhaps need chemotherapy, radiation. I'm sure that's a big part of treatment. However, how many of and this is me just thinking out loud, how many of these patients are getting a true holistic approach? Of course, we're doing, let's say, chemo or radiation as one part of treatment. Now let's look at what are you eating? What does your support system look like? Are you meditating? What does your sleep look like? Are we treating every patient, and not just, terminally ill or cancer patients with this, but any sort of end stage chronic disease or any sort of terminal illness? Are we treating patients from this domain? And I think perhaps a lot of times we aren't, based from my understanding and experience. I know with a lot of metabolic and chronic related illnesses, again, depending on how late we've caught them, we inevitably for sure can reverse them with proper diet and nutrition. Type 2 diabetes, for instance, we once thought it was largely genetic, but now we know a big part of it's lifestyle, and we can reverse it with the proper nutritional intervention. I think cancer is a very complex and tricky one. And again, I'm not extremely knowledgeable on it, but I guess you can speak to that, in that you've made a lot of nutritional changes when you were going through your illness, and perhaps that was one big part that had a profound impact in your prognosis.
Sure, I'd happily speak on this. In defense of, traditional, conventional healthcare practitioners, they are taxed, right, to the max. And they are doing the best they can with the resources that they have available and the tools and the know-how that they have available to them. And I could not be more appreciative for all of my physicians in conventional medicine that keep me alive and keep me afloat. Gosh, they have some magic tricks up their sleeve that keep me here despite all the odds against my ability to do so. At the same time, as I said at the beginning and the get-go of the show, it is our due diligence to be the hero in our own story. It is not, the problems in healthcare are not all due to conventional medicine. Mm-hmm. It is on us to educate ourselves in the ways that we need to, and get the resources that we need to be best informed on our health. At the end of the day, these physicians are seeing, I don't know, I'm going to guess 60 people every day. I'm just going to throw out a random number. I have no idea. But those 60 people, and then these physicians go home to their own families at the end of the day. You are like a minutia. As much as they want to focus on you, you're just a minutia. But your minutia in their world is your whole life. Mm-hmm. And so you need to take accountability. They're a small portion in your whole circle of healthcare. You need to take accountability for your own nutritional wisdom, for your own mindfulness, for your own mental health, there can't be one person who does it all. Because frankly, if we're looking for somebody to be our hero, whether that's a medical doctor or anybody, mm-hmm. We're going to lose the battle, because we need to have a proactive, taking agency approach in our own healthcare. And we need to be best informed on our own. And there's so many resources available to us to do so, mm-hmm. let alone all of these incredible people like yourself. And so forming our team, right, of who we trust most, but it's not just one person on that team, and having that team collaboratively to work together. But yeah, nutrition is definitely a piece of it that I felt when I was first diagnosed with leukemia. It is really difficult with leukemia specifically as well, because there are so many confounding factors with leukemia, including the fact that I couldn't clot my own bloodstream if I had a bleed. And so there are foods that I had to avoid for those kind of reasons. There are different foods I had to avoid for the chemotherapy reasons. There are different foods I had to avoid for infection reasons. I mean, I could go on and on and on, given leukemia impacts all of your bloodlines in so many different facets of your health and wellness. And so at that time, George, I really felt powerless, right? To be my own hero in my own story. And I feel like as soon as we feel powerless, that's when we all have struggle. When pain is inevitable, it's like the human thread that connects us all, we're all going to experience pain. But that idea of struggle comes from when we feel powerless. And I felt powerless in my own healthcare at the time when I was admitted with all of these treatment regimens prescribed. I felt like I was really, I couldn't do all the things I really wanted to do, Mm-hmm. And so along the way, I've established a really great relationship with my healthcare practitioners, conventional medicine doctors, I should say, in that, when I really believe I need to do something that is perhaps considered in the alternative realm, let's say non-conventional, they usually support me at this point. We have I call it a working relationship. We're like colleagues. And if I speak up for myself for something I believe in, they generally respect me. If they speak up for something that they really believe in, I will respect them as well. And it's a partnership like you described, but it's not a full reliance on one person for my survival. Does that make sense?
No, I think, yeah, it makes complete sense. And you've hit on many good points there. And I think the best form of medicine is integrative medicine and collaboration, right? Blending the beauties of conventional medicine or Eastern medicine with everything else. And I think that's how you're going to get the best outcomes for your patients, having the open-mindedness to listen to your patient and hear what they have to say. And yeah, I think everything that you said, I fully align with, right? Because sorry.
Yeah. I'll say too that, there's a lot of strife happening out there in patients today where they're like, oh, my physician, my conventional medical doctor won't talk with my naturopathic physician.
Yes. Yep.
And there's a lot of heartache and grief about that right now. And having served as a chiropractor, I've experienced it in different ways myself. But at the end of the day, I can say from being a patient who has, and I still am a frequent flyer over at BGH, I have a specialist in, you name it, any kind of the ologies, right? And none of the ologies talk. It's not even like the medical practitioner isn't necessarily talking with the naturopathic physician, but there's just not enough time for these physicians to literally have all of these conversations with all of my own ology doctors, even in the medical realm, let alone outside of the medical realm. And so again, it's for you to be your own binder of information and you to connect that information at the end of the day between your naturopathic physician or your chiropractor and your medical doctor or whoever else is on your team. Because I assure you, there's no one round table that they're ever going to sit around. It's just not going to happen. And I agree, it would be better, but it's just, with resources available to us, it's just not going to happen. So we spend so much time in our healthcare kind of complaining, about these things that aren't being met. But at the end of the day, I think we need to have more of a problem-solving attitude and educating our patients and empowering our patients to be their own best resource and to be the communicator and to have that strong voice between all of these different practitioners.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about accountability, I couldn't agree more. In that any patient that is seeing any type of healthcare professional, doctor, or you name it, I think the number one thing that they need to think about is I need to be it's me that has to make the changes, right? The doctor, the healthcare practitioner, they're going to be there to guide and support and perhaps hold you accountable. But if you're not willing, or if you don't have the motivation, the intention, the discipline, it's going to be very difficult for whatever it is that you're experiencing, because you need to be, the maker of your own path, right?
Well, this is a hard one for a lot of people to grasp, especially when they're facing something like cancer, let's say, or any health diagnosis. And I'm not saying that I faced a cancer diagnosis because I did something wrong. Nor am I saying that about anybody else in the world or for any other hardship, right? Whatever medical illness you're facing. But at the same time, we can all take responsibility to look around our environment and say, what can I do to maximize my overall health? Take your eye off the focus of cancer and say, what can I do? What could I have been doing in my previous life that I could now change to live a much more healthier lifestyle all around, right? And be accountable to make those changes. I always say, if we take no accountability and no responsibility in our own health, then we give all of that, like we give 100. I would have given, if I took no accountability to say, okay, I'm not going to change my sleep, my nutrition, my mindfulness. If I'm not going to take accountability to look at these pieces that I do day in and day out, right? Then I would have given all of that success, my potential success, either to chemotherapy, or to cancer, right? Like those are my, and I give my power away by doing that. And so I'm not saying it's our fault, but I am saying it is our due diligence to take accountability and responsibility. I always mess it up, but there's an expression that we can't heal in the same environment that made us sick. You know, we really have to look not just internally, but externally. How are we living this lifestyle? Like, what is pulling energy from us, and how can we refuel that energy? And whether it's food or these practices of, you know, soul food and how we enrich ourselves, you know, how we refuel and recharge, but also important in this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, George, thank you. Can you please give my audience maybe 5 takeaways that they can do today to live a healthier and happier life tomorrow?
5 takeaways. First and foremost, and no particular order, I would say spend as much time as you can outside, especially in the sun. That with, I guess, an exercise called grounding, super powerful. And by grounding, I mean step outside. Of course, when the weather's nice, take off your shoes, take off your socks, and just feel the earth beneath you.
Oh, I love that.
Profound impacts on the mind, blood chemistry, heart rate. I'm a firm advocate as well as cold showers. Very difficult to do, but that's another thing that I think is helps a lot. Meditation.
Okay, let's talk about the cold plunge for a second. The cold shower.
Yeah.
Can you explain to my audience what are the exact benefits? Why would I want to do that?
So the cold shower can do many things for us. It reduces inflammation, improves circulation. It is actually more effective upon waking than caffeine, which is what most people consume. And it gets our adrenaline going. It's a form of what we call eustress, where we have stress and then we have eustress. It's a form where the body takes, and it's very uncomfortable. But while we do this over time, it actually prepares our body to handle, I guess, the mild stresses of life more effectively.
Can you explain the physiological response
from a cold shower?
Yes, or a cold plunge.
Yeah, so a cold shower, cold plunge. So what is happening when we submit ourselves or submerge ourselves is the blood vessels are constricting and it's tightening up. And what's happening is the blood is having difficulty to disperse. And as a result, we are getting a high release of neurotransmitters, catecholamines, dopamine, serotonin, catecholamines like norepinephrine, epinephrine, and the body's is almost in this very sympathetic fight or flight, where you need to remove yourself from the situation, almost as if like you've seen a bear cross your path. And then what happens as you return to baseline or you turn down the shower, your body slowly calms down again. And over time, you're amping the body up with the cold shower to, again, just prepare itself for the difficulties.
So how long do you want me to stay in this cold shower?
So what I typically say is, if you're just starting, 10 seconds, you typically are taking a warm shower. Try to do it for the last 10 seconds, 5 seconds. And then as soon as you get comfortable with that, you can go to 15, 20, always work within your tolerance. And then the idea is if you can get up to like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you also don't want to be in the cold shower for an extended amount of time, like more than 5 minutes, again, depending on the temperature, because that's when we can start actually stressing the body.
So you're not going to let me take a hot shower at the end of that cold shower?
No, you have to. Yeah. You have to. Once the cold shower is done, that's it. You're done.
Okay, got it. Okay, so get outside in the sunshine, get some vitamin D, ground, feel the earth beneath our feet. I think lucky number 2 was the cold plunge. Let's go on to number 3.
Surround yourself by people that you absolutely adore and love, and if you reflect, they are meaningful connections, friends, families, partners, whatever that looks like for you. It doesn't, the quality is irrelevant. It's the quantity of the relationship, and really nurture those relationships, right? Spend time with them, talk openly, be vulnerable, communicate, be honest. That in itself, I think, has such profound impacts on both our mental and physical health. So cool.
Good.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's so good. So
it's
true.
So good.
Surround yourself with people that elevate you.
Yeah.
Right? They say that we become like the 5 people we spend most of our time with. So really be conscious about who those people are and the impact that they leave on you, right? And really be aware of that if they're elevating you to betterness or not. So I think that's really important. Great point.
And then exercise for sure. And that could be anything. Find something that you truly enjoy doing. It could be walking, running, any activity, sport that gets the heart rate up.
What does science tell me that exercise, let's say I pick walking.
Okay.
What does science tell me? How many times a week do I need to do to have a positive impact? And what distance would I need to go? Or how long would I need to do it for?
Yeah. And so I guess Canada has set forth guidelines, and I think that it's at 150 minutes of a moderate intensity. But I think when it comes to exercise, the importance there is as long as we're doing it, most of the time, right? And we're getting the heart rate up. It's simplistic to say if you get 150 minutes of moderate exercise, you'll be okay. I think it's a little bit perhaps more complex than that. In that, as long as you're doing it, you're getting the heart rate up and you're working within an intensity that makes you sweat. Walking, for example, not to say that walking isn't intense, but I think you need to do a little bit more than walking when it comes to exercise.
Okay, so tell me 150 minutes per day, per week?
Let's say 150 minutes per week, and it's going to be at a moderate intensity. We can say, 70%, 60 to 70% of your heart rate, which most can more often than not can be measured now with most people have like smartwatches and that sort of thing. An easier way to gauge that is, are you sweating? Are you able to sustain a conversation? That's when you're kind of entering the territory of exercise that you're feeling exerted from.
So if I break that down, let's say I do, it's basically 2.5 hours. If I do all of that 2.5 hours on a Saturday, do I get all those same benefits, Dr. George?
The weekend warriors is what we call them. I think that's quite intense. Like anything, exercise has to be done over time. You need to give your body time to rest. Exercise, as much as it is good, it is stressful on the body, right? There's a lot of micro tears in our muscles. And so if we don't give the body enough time to heal, rest, and recover, we can actually be doing more harm than good. So it's important to spread the exercise, the time. If it's 150 minutes, divide that by, 4 days, 5 days, whatever that looks like for your schedule. And just to really allow the body to heal from that exercise.
Okay, great point. Let's go into lucky number 5.
Sleep.
Sleep.
Sleep is I think one of the most important things. And when I say sleep, is get in a routine where you go to bed more or less at the same time. You can wake up at the same time. Really reflect on what your sleeping patterns are like. If you go to bed, are you able to fall asleep quickly? Are you sitting in bed for 30 to 40 minutes? Are you waking up in the middle of the night? Is it easy to fall back asleep? When you wake up, are you refreshed? Really reflect on these. And if you are questioning or thinking about, oh yeah, that sounds like me, then you probably have to start thinking about how you're going to improve your sleep. Sleep, again, it's when we consolidate memories. It's when we heal. It has, again, so many profound impacts. If your sleep is disturbed, it is going to have spillover effects in all areas in your life.
Which I will say, as a hospital inpatient for years on end, it is really hard to sleep in the hospital setting. There are people coming in and out at all times. I remember my blood was drawn every morning at 5 a.m. It is really, really hard. And so you want that restorative rest, but it is hard to get at the same time. It's almost like counterintuitive. But yeah, that's great. Can I ask a question on that sleep front? Do you encourage melatonin?
So I'm an advocate of it if it's needed. Our body naturally produces it. There's other supplements that I do like for sleep. It depends on the case. Magnesium bisglycinate as one, and I'm not recommending this, of course, but that's one that I typically use and have found to be quite helpful. Aside from sleep, magnesium takes part in over 300 enzyme reactions in the body. But melatonin, I think, can be beneficial, right? If you're not getting profound sleep, it might work. I do advise, though, a lot of, from my experience with patients, vivid dreams is a reported side effect, and you actually might wake up feeling a little bit more groggy depending on the dose. But overall, generally speaking, I think melatonin can be beneficial for some.
Okay. I'm kind of chuckling as I had quite the vivid dream last night. But
yeah, there you go.
That's for another day. Anyhow, and no melatonin.
Melatonin, okay.
Anyhow, Risers and Thrivers, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode with Dr. George today. George, thank you. I cannot thank you enough. You've been wonderful.
It was an amazing conversation. I'm so happy that I was here to talk to you today.
Myself as well. And will I see you here in Vancouver?
Yes, I will be there in January for Dr. Gabor. I'm so excited. I've been following his teachings for years. I've read most of the books. Yeah, I can't wait to hear you speak, meet you in person. I'm very excited.
Well, it's going to be a great lineup. We have the dietitian who serves our Vancouver Canucks and our Canadian Olympic athletes. We have a kinesiology prof who's an exercise physiologist and just a guru overall who's going to inspire our audience with really easy tools to live a more fit and energized life. And it's going to be a great show. I'll be talking all about how to cultivate hope and joy in the face of life's hard days. And as you said, Dr. Gabor Mate will be there. He'll really be expanding on his book, When the Body Says No, but he will definitely be getting into his topics on trauma and how that can lead to illness and addiction later on. He's just such a phenomenal wealth of wisdom and incredibleness all around. So join us, Risers and Thrivers, at the 2024 International Health and Happiness Summit. You can find more information on my website at risetoday.com. All of the tickets for in-house are sold out. The live event has been sold out. That was well received, and those tickets flew off the shelf within just a few days. So I was really happy about that. But we are bringing this to you in a live streaming forum as well. And so you can take part. You can ask questions for the collaborative question and answer period towards the end. And we would love to see you on the live. And for those of you who have tickets in-house, we can't wait to see you there too, to kick off a really healthy and happy new year together. Thank you again, George. We'll see you soon. All the best, Risers and Thrivers. Rise today, my friends.